Hi everyone and welcome. Today I'm going to talk about this right here, Ravel Gaspard de la Nuit. It is widely considered one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult piano pieces, and I'm going to talk about my experiences playing it and really try to give you every single detail that I can recall about this piece and my experience learning it, performing it, and some tips and tricks. So this video will be quite long. This is a warning. You can probably see down here how long it is. I'm not going to cut anything. I'm just going to talk freely about it and then maybe show you some examples on the piano later. And even if you have not played it, I think it's going to be useful for you because you can also take some of these things and adapt them to your own pieces, or just listen to the stories and to my experiences of playing this piece, which I think is helpful regardless if you have played it or not. So I have taken some notes here which I'm going to use because I'm going to talk freely about it, as I said, but still have some pointers here so I know when to talk about what. So about the piece just generally, I will leave a link in the description about the piece. So Ravel's Gaspard de la Nuit is based on poems by Aloysius Bertrand. He's a French poet. He was a French poet and writer. And basically Ravel took three poems and made compositions on them. It is important to notice also that even though Ravel usually writes piano parts and then also orchestral scores, for Gaspard de la Nuit he did not write an orchestral version. But there was a French composer, Constant, I think his name is, and he did a fantastic orchestral version, which I will also leave in the description, I guess, by the French Symphony Orchestra. There's a recording which I love. So this is already a bit different. If you think about pieces like Tombeau de Couperin by Ravel, there he did actually make a version for orchestra himself and many other pieces too, but for this suite he only composed it for piano. Getting a bit dark here. So yeah, these pieces are based on three poems, as I said, and you can really hear how Ravel worked and how he put those poems into music. It's quite fascinating actually, and the composition is absolutely genius and beautiful. I mean, if you have never listened to the Gaspard de la Nuit, I strongly recommend that you listen to it. It's a beautiful composition. So let's talk a little bit first about the difficulty, because people love to talk about difficulty of stuff. How difficult is the Gaspard de la Nuit? Okay, that's a very difficult question to answer. Just difficult, yeah. So people like to compare it with, for example, there was a popular comparison, but I think now, fortunately, it has disappeared. People used to compare it with Islamé by Balakirev, and that's just a ridiculous comparison. Of course, Gaspard is probably 10 times harder than that. So just to get that kind of comparison out of the way. Is it the hardest piano piece? Well, it is definitely one of the hardest piano pieces. I think there's no doubt about that, and professionals will agree that it does not really get more difficult than Gaspard de la Nuit. And if we're going to talk about difficulty, it's important that we talk about, difficulty. What is it actually with Gaspard de la Nuit? Why is it so difficult? And it's not only the technical stuff. I mean, the technical stuff is very, very difficult. It's about as difficult as it gets. One can argue that there are some contemporary compositions or some late 20th century stuff that is just ridiculous and goes on for 5 or 6 hours, and it's more difficult than that. But what Ravel did here is he compressed musical difficulty and technical difficulty into one, and we have just this amazing combination of both, which I think is almost unsurpassed. I mean, there are pieces that you can say are equally as difficult musically and technically, and some people will say, yeah, but this piece is more technically difficult. Yeah, sure, but This is beautiful music and actually is very hard to play right, also hard to understand everything correctly. So in terms of difficulty, where I would rank it is no question, it's a 10 out of 10. I don't use like the 9 with the hand rating stuff. I say out of 10, and out of 10 this is a 10. The whole thing is a 10 out of 10. If you're gonna play the whole suite, 3 pieces, by the way, Ondine, Le Gibet and Scarbo are the 3 pieces, it's a 10 out of 10 in difficulty. Now, if we talk about individual difficulty of pieces, you know, Ondine, Le Gibet, Scarbo, which one is the most difficult, then I will say the most difficult one is Scarbo by a little bit. Because I don't only take in account the technical stuff, but also the musical complexity. And Ondine is super hard. It's just a little bit, in my opinion, easier than Scarbo. They have different kinds of technical challenges. In Scarbo, you have a variety of many different technical aspects that you need to master and play completely right, and you need to perfect them. And in Ondine, it's more about sound, color, and playing, you know, it's more similar in technique, the Ondine, especially since you have this repeating pattern that goes throughout the, you know, many pages. So it's more uniform, you know, more like one pattern that really repeats. And in Scarbo, you have many different facets that are making it more difficult to play it perfectly as a whole. So this is kind of the difference in difficulty. Le Gibet is super hard because it has many different patterns of when notes are accentuated, and also the chords are always difficult to remember. Well, at least for me. You have these a bit strange sounding chords, which are perfectly fine, of course, but just unusual chords that you need to remember. So it's more of a kind of memorization kind of thing. And of course, when you play Le Gibet, you need to be absolutely concentrated and you need to be almost in a Zen state. But I will get to performance and stuff later. Right now, just talk about the difficulty, and I think the whole thing is a 10 out of 10. The hardest being Scarbo by a little bit, because it's just more versatile in terms of technical demands. Okay, now let's see, next pointer here. How long did it take to learn the piece? So I actually am playing the Gaspard Nuit already for a couple of years. I haven't played it for a couple of years straight, like without breaks. That would be ridiculous, of course. I have learned it, played it, and then I put it away, learned it again, repeated it, performed it, put it away, and this process I've done many times. So it's already a couple of years, and to learn the notes definitely took me a couple of months. I actually learned Ondine first, then I had other stuff going on, so I only played Ondine, and then I came back to learn and play Le Gibet and Scarbo. So it probably took me a couple of months to learn the notes. I couldn't give you an exact figure because I didn't write it down, but it was not a matter of weeks, it was more of a matter of months to learn just the sheet music. But I am someone who actually doesn't just read through the whole thing. I like to already work on parts before I continue. So that's why it probably took me longer to learn the piece. Okay, let's see. How many times did I perform it? Yeah. So I have performed this piece probably in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 times in concerts or publicly. So I have some experience with the piece, definitely. And there are some things that still I need to work on, even haven't played it so often. And some other things that, due to performing it quite often, have become easier. Then if we talk about the editions used, it's very important that you are careful about which edition you use. So there are multiple editions of the Gaspard de Nuit, and I only recommend you use the Henle version. So there is of course the famous Durand, which is the French edition, and they also have this music here. But there are many problems and mistakes about that edition, which I can make a whole video about that. And kind of every professional knows about this, and they haven't fixed them, or maybe, I mean, they have recently fixed them, but last time I checked, they still had the mistakes, which include notes that are different, accidentals that are different, rhythms that are different, for example in Ondine. So this has been revised. I forgot the name by the guy who did it, but he worked very intensively, and then they published the Henle edition, which has fixed all these mistakes. And I was at a masterclass recently also, and the first question I was asked is which edition do you use? And yeah, the Henle is the only correct choice nowadays, unless they have fixed the Durand or other editions. Please only learn with the Henle edition, because the others have some wrong notes, rhythms and stuff. So be careful with that. Okay, next. Yeah. Now, my experiences playing and performing it, I've kind of talked about. I played it in concerts, but let's talk about the experience, how it kind of developed. I think when you play it the first time, you're like any other piece, you're very overwhelmed by what's going on. So let's say you learn it since 2 months, and then you have to play it somewhere, you're going to be definitely overwhelmed by how much is going on, you know? So my advice for playing it the first time in public is take it slow and just try to bring everything out. You know, there is so much information there. If you don't be someone who just rushes through and the piece doesn't make sense, you know, take your time, and that's the advice for playing it the first time. Now, having played it often, my progress was kind of like this. By the 5th or 6th time, I was more in control of what's going on, and I will get to this later when I talk about the mindset while playing this piece. But the more you have played it, the more you are in control, and then the better the whole Gaspard works. So that's what I'm going to talk about in the mindset. Okay, then I will also mention my favorite recordings of the piece. My favorite recordings. So of course everyone's individual in this regard, and I will say first of all that I have probably listened to, I don't know, 30, 40 different recordings of the Gaspard de Nuit in search of finding that interesting idea that I haven't heard before, etc. So I have really listened to a lot, really, I mean, probably even more than 40. And from just myself personally, my favorites include the Ivo Pogorelic recording, which I especially love his Ondine, and I mean technically it's just ridiculously good. And then I also, from the live recordings, I very much do like Hao Chen Zhang. I can also leave a link in the description. He played it in the Clyburn competition, I think 2010 I believe, or 2009. Absolutely love it. And then lastly, of course, Yuzha Wang, I heard her Scarbo, and also completely ridiculously good technique, just perfection. I mean, she plays live like people play on a CD, and just very mesmerizing how she plays it. Lastly, I will also add the Sokolov recording, because Sokolov always has great ideas. Now, I know there are tons of other pianists who have played it. Really, I have listened to everything from Michelangelo, or even live recordings, you know, Lucas de Barg or Argerich, of course. but I completely like those recordings as well. I'm just saying which ones are the ones that stood out to me and inspired me the most are, as I said, Pogorelis, Yu Wang, Hao Chenjiang, and Sokolov. I would add too. So actually, I have asked Kissin. So after a concert, I went to his the artist room where you can go, and I just asked him very cheekily why he didn't play this piece. I mean, Kissin is probably my favorite or top three pianists, and I asked him why didn't you play it, and he told me that he didn't feel like he would want to play it or didn't think he would add anything because he told me that he completely loves the recording by Samson Francois. That's a French pianist, by the way, in case you don't know, famous for Chopin, etc. And he loves that recording so much that he didn't feel he could add anything to, by playing it himself. Now, first, I think that's kind of ridiculous. Of course, I don't know how much I would pay to listen to him play that, but I don't think we should not play a piece just because there's a favorite recording. Otherwise, I would not be playing anything, because there's so many great recordings out there. But very humble, very interesting thing he said about it. Yeah, just a funny side story there. Why Kissin hasn't played it. Okay. Now let's see the mindset while playing the piece. I will tell you what my mindset is when I play this piece. My mindset is I do all the preparation work before. So Ravel for me is someone who, not just for me probably, someone who's very precise and someone who doesn't really do well with spontaneous actions, or it doesn't fit him so much, in my opinion. In my opinion, Ravel is very exact, very prepared, and just completely beautiful because it's done like this. So I don't add a lot of spontaneous, I don't add probably any spontaneous ideas when I play. If I played the Gaspard to you 10 times, it would sound 10 times the same unless, I do a little bit more dynamic here or less, but it would sound about the same. So be very exact and precise when you play Ravel in general, and especially if you play the Gaspard de la Nuit. Then I will tell you my mindset is basically just you have to be with this piece, with the whole suite, you have to be somewhere above. You can't be down there playing, thinking everything, and this is not how it really works, at least for me. After playing it so often, I've experienced this. You need to be somewhere above and you almost look down on yourself playing it. It's almost like you are not the one actively playing it. Because if you play Scarbo, for example, and you're just in there and thinking so much and absolutely active, trying to make every passage work, which is a good thing, yeah? But you will kind of let the devilish nature of the piece take over your cool and control, and this is very easy in Scarbo. This can happen very easily in Scarbo, and I've heard some recordings which are very passionate, very, how should I say, very it's almost like they're taken over by this rush, but really I believe that the best way to play it is to be absolutely laid back and have a little bit of disconnect to what is actually happening. That doesn't mean that you have to play boring. Don't play boring in any stretch of the imagination. Don't play boring. Play very exciting. But when you're there performing it, you need to be absolutely cool and just, and also think a bit slowly is a trick I have also for especially Scarbo. If you think very quickly and rush from one passage to the next, it will sound rushed. But if you're there just, just relaxed, and you don't let the piece take control of you. You control the piece, and you think about every passage, and then you slowly connect them. You don't jump, and you slowly connect, and you're completely in charge, and then it sounds like a great Scarbo. So this is also something that will help you with technical passages, because there are many of them and they vary in technique very quickly, which means at one moment you have to do repetitions, and then you have to do chords, and then you have to do arpeggios, etc. And the way to really do all of that, for me at least, is to really be like laid back, be in charge, practice a lot before, and at the moment of performing it, you have to be completely zen, almost zen state, which is also what I like about Le Gibet, especially when playing it, is I'm almost in a meditation state, really. And this has allowed me to play Le Gibet every time without being nervous about what chords come next, and without being nervous about having any memory slips or anything like that. So I pick a slow tempo for Le Gibet, a little bit slower, but I'm absolutely in a meditation state. I quite like to close my eyes and just really focus on the bell, and play absolutely controlled, and don't let anything push you or rush you. Just you do your thing and play controlled. And for Ondine is a lot about sound color, and this beautiful mermaid. So Ondine, I quite like to just imagine a lot with water sounds, and I like to work with all the small details. And I think Ondine is probably the easiest one to understand, probably, but very, very difficult in terms of getting it right with the sound color and the dynamics, and also technically. Good. So I think before I get into some specific details, that's kind of the overview. And now I will tell you some details and play for you. Now, I'm not going to play the Gaspard Nuit today. I haven't practiced this in about 5 months now, because I have complete other repertoire going on. But I thought this would be still a interesting video to do. I would just give you some pointers here if I can. Just not a whole piece tutorial in that sense, but just some things that I find interesting and important. So right at the beginning, the famous start of Ondine. So I take 1, 2, 3, and then 5. And the important thing for me is that it almost feels like this, but it is not too not one note too loud. That is very difficult to do. The balance of the chord takes months to take right, probably. Don't be too shy with the melody in general. You can't obviously crash in, but a little bit more is quite appropriate, I think. This section right here is quite important. That every time you do it, whoops, pen went in, 16, 18 and 20, you gradually progress a little bit in dynamic. This is actually one of the very beautiful parts. 26, that is a triplet, and also in body 22, that is also a triplet. So I know that some people don't do it this way, maybe because they use the old Durand edition, right? But it's actually a triplet, These are both triplets, so just keep that in mind. Then if you continue here, I don't have anything to tell. If you have any questions, please just leave a comment, I will try to answer it. Don't think I have anything interesting to add here either. So about here, the thirds, I can give you my fingering here. I will post a picture right now that you can see. This is the fingering that has absolutely worked for me 100%, and yeah, this is just the best fingering. I've tried many fingerings, this is the best for me. I hear a lot of people just opening up the climax way too quickly. Yeah, the climax opens quite late, and you have to play the climax slower. Yeah, actually a little, I mean quite a lot slower. So I forgot how this goes. That is kind of the tempo I would take for the climax. And very importantly are these like the top notes in the left hand, and of course the melody notes, which later, you know, these lines need to really come through. The arpeggios and the glissandi. I do the first one glissando, and the second time I do fingered glissando. You can do blackie, but I have had more success in playing the pianissimo triple piano with finger instead of doing a glissando. So this is also a trick you can use here. For the last page, the fortissimo comes quite soon actually, and then goes back down. So etc. So don't be too loud for a long time. Really bring it back dynamically. Now, what I can say about every time that the main melody comes, the color is a bit different. For example, the first time it's a bit different than the second time. Maybe more mysterious second time, and also you work with the thumb in the right hand and the melody in the left hand. Yeah. Then when you play it, also really don't concentrate too much on playing this, but try to hear more of the actual color that you're producing. So it's a good thing to not look there and not be too active, but listen to the sound that you're producing. For Le Gibet, just every time the accent comes and then you have this tenuto, the difference, you need to find a system for you and follow through with this kind of system. Then the hardest passages are the ones where, yeah, these passages, you know, where the notes are split and the melody is in the left hand. So the bell always needs to come through whenever you have these passages. It doesn't matter where. You know, this note, the bell has to be heard throughout. And really play kind of a slow tempo and just concentrate and be in a Zen state. That's what I would recommend for Le Gibet. For Scarbo, there are many different things I can tell you. The first is I do the repetition. So one finger. You can do it with 2 fingers. You can do it with 3 fingers. Doesn't really matter. The best way to do it is with 1 finger, because you can find the exact point where it repeats. So this allows you to make it the most quiet and really this kind of almost like a tremor, you know. So I would recommend doing it with 1 finger. If you cannot, then practice. And if you really cannot, because you cannot build tension in your forearm or whatever, then you should do 1 2. Still can do it quite piano, even 3 to 1. If you're a good pianist, it doesn't matter what finger you take, you will be able to do it piano. And then for the beginning, I recommend that you take more bass. So I recommend you take a little bit more bass in the whole of Scarbo. Actually, whole of Scarbo does really well with bass. About the tempo question, if you look closely, then the tempo, actually, if you take this tempo, then this is the tempo. Everyone, and I mean really everyone, I haven't heard many recordings that do it correctly. Actually, I think Michelangelo is one of those that really do it correctly, but everyone kind of fluctuates with the tempo a little bit here. If you were really strict and precise, then you would see the first bar of the au mouvement de vif is actually, if you take the proportions, it means later, if you play like this, so the Scarbo is actually quite slow. I mean, this is not slow, but if you hear to listen to some recordings, some people do it like. But then good luck in the rest of the piece, yeah? So I would recommend slow, but really measured. The Scarbo sounds great in this tempo, trust me, yeah? It doesn't need to be much faster than this. Then what I can tell you for the this section here is always have a different sound for these. For these, always the same sound. Don't try to be clever and take different sounds for every time that it appears. No, take one sound for the chords, one sound for this. And always like this, yeah? One sound for the chorus, one sound for the tremolo. Then if we continue, this part is quite hard. My advice is that you play shorter. So a bit shorter notes, yeah? So this is where most people struggle with. Play them not so long, basically. If you try to do too much legato, good luck, yeah, it's not gonna work. Now, if I give you my finger here, I do 5 to 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. So 5 to 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. And this has been the most successful fingering for me. So that's the passage here. You can also split, by the way, this part into two hands, and that's how I do it actually. So you can either do like this, you know, like most people do it, or you split, and I will also show you how to split it. You take the D and the B in the right hand, like this, and then also split the chords. Etc. The harder part again is this here, and you need to again listen to the left first of all and play very sideways with the thumb. also here, hold the fingers more sideways, so you have more surface area, so to say, to play those notes. That has helped me a lot also personally. For the whole of Scarbo, remember that the dynamics are, if you look at the whole thing, it is mostly piano. Mostly is piano. You have mezzo forte as well, but most of it is piano, even pianissimo. So really these explosions are isolated events. So don't play the whole thing too loud. The whole thing is actually, if you look at it, you know, globally, it's quite a quiet piece. So play the whole thing like it's written, except for the parts where it explodes. For example, this whole section here. You know, we open up a little bit, but not more than a mezzo forte. And later, of course, we go up in the sounds. By the way, for these, I recommend, I don't know how they go right now. Yeah, I recommend that you do a little bit legato in the left hand. That's what I like to do for the sound. It sounds a little bit, I know it's a kind of a more, not brutal, but this kind of sound for this passage, but I like to, have like a big orchestral crescendo rather than like this kind of sound. But if you have any questions, just let me know and I can tell you exactly what fingering I take in this bar, etc. So really it's a hell of a difficult piece, and it will take a lot of time to practice it, a lot of time to learn it. My suggestion is, if you're not at the level to play it, then go do something else, honestly. I see so many people try to play this, and of course you can learn it if you want to, but I think you have better things to do if you're not at the stage yet, than rather to learn one of the hardest pieces of piano. But I hope you enjoyed some of the information I gave to you. I hope you can take some of it and use it for your other pieces, or just that you enjoyed some of the stories. Yeah. So thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video.